All right, guys. So this is our second version of the club-wide Together Thursday from San Juan Soccer Club. Today we have a very, very special guest, Miss Janine Beckie. I know from the communications I got from some of the players on the teams that I coach, they were super fired up to have her on. And some people freaked out about how did you guys even get her to come and join. So we can thank the Curry family since they have a relationship. And Zach was nice enough to be able to connect us. So thank you, Zach. And thanks, Janine, for coming. Obviously, it's a treat for our kids being stuck at home, but being able to hear somebody who's kind of walked, hopefully, a similar path that some of them will be on.
Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah, we appreciate it. So, hey, just for everybody that's here from the club, we changed the format. So now it's a webinar format. So you can't all see each other. You can't send 4,000 chat messages back and forth. So we will be less distracted and hopefully have a little bit more control. So we'll go with Janine for about an hour, and then the 7 o'clock session with Adam John is in a different room. So we will end this meeting right at 7 and then head to that one for those of you that are coming. So Janine, here you are. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Sure, I'll be here.
I know you're stuck in the house somewhere, right? You're in Colorado?
I'm in snowy Colorado.
Okay.
So actually stuck in the house.
Yes, exactly. Snow on the ground. Mm-hmm. So I guess the way we would start this is just tell us a little bit about you, right? You're from Colorado, I assume?
Mm-hmm. Yep, I was born here. Okay. Yeah, so a little bit about me. I was born and raised in Colorado, just south of Denver. I grew up playing for Real Colorado, so I'm sure a lot of you have either heard of Real or played against Real. But some of you also might be confused. Well, if she was born in Colorado, how does she play for Canada? So both my parents are Canadian, and all three of my older siblings are Canadian as well. So I think when I was about a month old, both my parents applied for Canadian citizenship. So I have dual citizenship, which means I carry both an American and a Canadian passport, which is pretty cool. So yeah, I grew up playing for Real. I started playing when I was 4, but I also played tons of other sports. I would have a hard time finding a sport that I didn't play. And then I went to Texas Tech University and played 4 years down in Lubbock, Texas. And then I got drafted into the pros. So played 2 years in Houston, Texas for the Houston Dash. And 1 year in New Jersey for Sky Blue FC. And then I've been with Manchester City ever since.
Awesome. All right. Well, I guess we've covered it all now, so we're good to go. I guess, so obviously we have players on this call from the age of probably 9 to 19 in all likelihood. Some that are just getting ready to go off to college, some that are just starting their kind of competitive soccer, journey or adventure in a crazy way. It's being stuck in their house and doing Zoom trainings.
Yeah.
How would you describe kind of your younger years growing up in soccer? Did you start in rec? Did you jump quickly to competitive? How was that?
Yeah, I started in rec, played rec soccer from 4 to, I think it was 11, because we didn't start competitive soccer till under 12. So under 12 age group was the first competitive environment that I was in. And based on my success in my adult years, most would probably think that I was, always had that kind of success in soccer, but I actually wasn't very good when I was younger. I just really loved the sport. I played basketball very seriously as well, and I actually ran track in high school. So I did all 3 sports in high school, so it wasn't even just soccer for me in my youth. But yeah, I didn't have a super easy time in competitive soccer. I started on the top team at Real, U12. We went to regionals that first year that I played competitively, which some of you probably don't even know what that is because State Cup was a very long time ago. But anyways, pretty much have to win your state and then you go to regionals. And if you win regionals, you go to nationals, blah, blah, blah. So we did that. And then the club kind of started to communicate with my family and say, we think it might be beneficial for her to play on the B team just to develop a little bit more. So I was then dropped down to the B team for, I want to say 2 or 3 years, which was some of my fondest memories of youth soccer, just enjoying it so much, having so much fun.
Can
And
I,
then,
hold on, I'm gonna cut you off because I
yeah,
think that's not necessarily unique, right? It doesn't happen all that often where people willingly say, I'm gonna stay in the same club and go from the first team to the second team.
mhm.
More often we see people leave and go to another club because they can be on the first team somewhere else.
Yeah.
Why did you decide to stay at Real, and why? Because in your words, they were some of your better memories. How was that?
Well, I think part of the reason I stayed at the club naturally was because all three of my older siblings were still playing for Real, and I don't think it was ever a thought to leave the club. I definitely didn't want to. I think more so at that point it was because all of my best friends were on my club team. So to be honest, I don't really remember how I felt in that time. I'm sure I felt super disappointed because most kids would. But sitting here today, I mean, it absolutely was the right decision for my development, and I have to give credit to my coaches at Real for seeing that I was maybe behind a little bit, or not physically developed as much as some of the girls on my team. I was really small when I was younger, super skinny. So yeah, I really enjoyed being on the B team. I think it helped my confidence a lot because I was one of the better players on the team, which that doesn't ever hurt to be super confident. So that was great. And then I think they just kind of realized it was time for me to go back up. And actually, this is again confusing because of my birth month and my birth year. I was playing with my grade and not my age. So I actually went up to the national team in the younger age group. So I ended up switching to another team than I was on before, which in the club at that time was actually the better team. The younger team was actually better than the team that was at my grade. So I went to that team, and that's the team that I finished my club career with. And yeah, to this day, still some of my good friends.
Awesome. No, that's fantastic. So you said you played other sports, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you were good at the other sports. How did you manage that and balance that? Because that's obviously a bit of a challenge, right?
Well, but my poor mom, because she had 4 kids that she was trying to get everywhere. She used to say she would watch like some unbelievable amount of soccer games in a weekend. But so from a big commitment from my mom, I was able to pull that off. But also just a big commitment from my coaches to let me do multiple sports, which I think is something that is difficult for kids in these days to be able to do multiple things. But I will always give massive credit to from my soccer career to my other sports and my experience in other sports. Just to be able to have that flexibility to be a multifaceted athlete, I think really helps me in my game and has helped me in my soccer development. But yeah, managing all of that with school on top of it, and I really had a very small social life, but that was something that I was kind of willing to sacrifice. But yeah, I played high school basketball, so I didn't play club basketball. So it was only one season. It was only in the winter time. And then obviously track and soccer run in the same season in high school. And I actually played high school soccer as well. So I was like high school basketball to club soccer and then to track and then back to soccer. It was pretty crazy, but definitely some of my fondest memories, like speeding from practice to practice and then just being absolutely
Eating while you can. Yeah,
yeah.
no, that's great. That's fantastic. All right, so you grew up in Real, or you grew up playing in Real, and now you're talking about high school soccer, right? So you played both high school and club, I assume, at that point in time, trying to navigate was that balance. How was your experience playing high school soccer?
I was super lucky. So I went to a private Christian high school in Colorado called Valor Christian. And we had a lot of the club girls that I played with and that were older than me, and from Real and from other clubs around Colorado. And we actually had a really talented group of girls playing high school soccer. So it helps that we were good. But I think the best thing about high school soccer was it was just so much less serious than club soccer. Not in a bad way, not like you go and you just mess around the whole time at practice, but just so much fun to kind of let loose and not have all the pressure of performance all the time. And then I think it's also really special to be able to play with your classmates. and the people that you see at school every day. So I really enjoyed that. We won one state championship while I was in high school, and we went to the state championship for my first 3 years in high school, and we just missed out on the state championship my senior year. So I had a really enjoyable time. I also was really lucky again to have coaches that allowed me to do both.
Yeah. In the state of California, you couldn't do both because they're in different seasons, so it doesn't.
Yeah, it's hard to do even here now.
All right, awesome. So I want to go back a little bit. You talked about the second team experience, right? And maybe being physically a little bit behind where other people were at that point in time. And I think that's a common, not a common, but it happens more than people would believe. So what do you feel like was the best part about being in that second team environment that allowed you to thrive and now obviously get to where you are playing as a professional at Man City?
Yeah, I think the best thing was that I wasn't having to overcompensate for my difference in physicality or probably a little bit in skill. So I was able to kind of be on more of a level playing field when it came to who I was playing with and who I was playing against. And the physical part of the game didn't have as much impact on me on the second team, which then allowed me to get better at the other parts of my game that then I think allowed me to make the step back up when it was time, because physical development will happen at some point. It just happened really late for me. So to be able to have the stress of being overpowered physically taken off of me and being able to develop my skill and my passing and all the other parts of the game without the stress of being knocked over every single time I got the ball was super helpful for me. And then once I did make the transition back, that gap had closed and I had developed physically more and was still very skinny, but able to compete a little bit more than I was.
So, all right, so let's go there. So you jumped, so now what are you, 15s, 14s when you jump back into the first team?
Yeah, probably around 15.
Okay. So you jump back in. So now that's probably one of the most awkward points of your life anyway, with going in or being in the high school ages and maybe some confidence challenges. How did you make that transition to jumping in from a group that you clearly really loved playing with, right, to maybe a different group? And I don't know if you love playing with them or not, but how was that?
Yeah, I just so super thankful and grateful for all the teams that I played on at Real, because they were all there wasn't a single team that I was like, I do not like being on this team. But yeah, leaving that second team was really hard because what became my two best friends were on that team. So that was really difficult. And I had heard some things about the team that I was going to, they were the team at Real, better than most, had some just super competitive girls. And I think it was just kind of the rumor around Real, this is kind of a tough group. So I was just even more nervous to go. But I think I focused on making friends and building relationships on the team first. And I think that was really important to me. And again, I had an unbelievable coach who really instilled confidence in me while at the same time being really hard on me. And like I said, I had kind of meshed back into a group that I was physically on the same level so the confidence issue was less about that and more about, okay, now I really have to compete and use my skill and my shooting and set myself apart so I can actually play on this team, because there were so many girls that were good enough to play. So yeah, I think it was all about how I handled the situation and made it more about relationship before I made it about the soccer.
That's a very, very good answer. I think that's something that's we're trying to stress for sure. I mean, our big kind of hashtag is better together, right? So we're trying to have that relationship piece, and I think that's what we're all missing right now during these crazy times of being stuck in our houses and we're connected with our family, but maybe not our friends. You hit on something there that I want to ask you, because we've asked this now with the other players, and I think it's something that comes up. You talked about having a good relationship with your coach, but your coach was really tough on you.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you navigate that? and then how, I don't know, why were you okay with it? Does that make sense?
Yep. I think I was more so used to it because growing up, that was how my siblings were and how my parents were. I have an incredible family, and my parents did an unbelievable job with us as kids. Just kind of instilling that balance of, being involved, but not being involved to the point of, overstepping, what felt like overstepping, and also saying, like, I know you can do better than that. That's not good enough. And so I think I kind of got that experience from my parents first. And so then when, I went into this club soccer environment and I have this coach who's, really loud and likes to yell, I knew it was because they wanted me on that team. So feeling like needed and wanted on the team, I think helped a lot. And so I knew that he knew what my capability was, but he also was able to see beyond my capability. And that's something that I don't think as a young person, I think it's really hard to understand. You talk about like, yo, you have all this potential. And I'm like, what does that mean? Like, kids don't know what that means. So just trusting that your coach can see beyond, where you are as a player in that moment. And that's what youth soccer is for. It's for development. It's for getting better. And I think I just really trusted that my coach had my best interest in mind. And I still give credit to that coach today for teaching me how to strike a ball, because that's one of the best aspects of my game. And that's when I first was like, it was pounded into my head how to do that.
Do you want to give that coach a shout out by name, just in case this makes its way around?
It was Lauren Donaldson and James Harris. So both of them together, just
Lauren and James, just in case this makes its way to the interwebs, we want to make sure that there's a name attached to it.
I'll be happy to hear it.
All right, I'm going to grab a quick question that came in. So when you were on the second team, and obviously with your aspirations, right, and desire to continue to get better, did you ever feel like there were times that there were people that maybe weren't as motivated as you, and how did you manage that?
Like on my team with me?
Yeah, and the second, like when you went from the first team to the second team, was there a
yeah.
how did you?
I think I just stayed focused on where I knew that I wanted to be, which was back on the national team. And I do remember, like, there were girls on that team that definitely wanted to go there with me. And it was a good second team. Like, we definitely weren't some big drop off from the top team. But yeah, there definitely is that difference in motivation. But I think it's just super important to be really clear about what your intention is on any given team, and what your goal is. And if you're on, C, D, whatever teams, like, it really doesn't matter, because you're all developing under the same roof, which is your club, with probably a lot of players that have the same aspirations as you. But to be really clear about what you want, which for me was to get back up on the national team, and at that time didn't know that was going to be a different team, to just enjoy the fact that I wasn't being physically pushed around like I was, and I actually was able to be successful with what I was doing and enjoying practice and enjoying games. And I think also I took a lot of my teammates with me in that sense. They saw what I wanted to do and they thought, okay, well, maybe I can do that too. So if you can kind of instill that in your teammates, then it helps everyone's cause. It helps you and it helps the team, because naturally you're all going to get better.
Yeah, no, it's very good. I think you hit on something that one of our other people talked about, and more of just focusing on you, right, and what you can control. And I like the part about dragging the people with you, because sometimes that's you never know what example you're setting. That's fantastic. There was a question one of the questions that came in. Did you have any setbacks in your youth that impacted you in any way?
Not from a like physical soccer perspective. I mean, obviously, like, being dropped down to the B team was what felt like a setback, but now that I look back on it, it was just the springboard to getting me back to to a new place that I didn't even know I wanted to be. But I think that's the thing about setbacks, is they say, like, setback for a comeback, or whatever that cliche statement is. But it really is true. Like, there's very few cases where a setback doesn't actually turn out to be something positive, because whether say you have a knee injury, knock on wood, and you actually aren't as physically able anymore as you were before, but now you've learned so much about that and about yourself and dealing with that. So I think from a soccer perspective, from an injury perspective, knock on wood again, I've been really lucky, but my dad passed away of cancer when I was 8. So from a life perspective, obviously that's a massive, bump in the road. And for me, I was still young enough that I didn't really understand that. So I don't think it had a massive impact on, my development as an athlete, or definitely has an impact on your development as a human being. But I think that was part of the reason that I was so invested in Real, because they, really put their arm around us as a family. And it's a club soccer family. You spend more time with those people normally than you do with your own family. So for me, that's part of the reason why my teammates and my relationships were so important, because I needed those people around me. And there's loads of examples, I'm sure, in people's lives, and hopefully people that are listening to this call, where you have, a life-altering thing happen to you, and it's those people that you go out and you go to training with every day, and the coaches that you see every day at your club that actually help you through it. And that was the case for me, and I think that's why I also had such a good experience with club soccer.
Well, it's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. We appreciate that. It's not always rainbows and kittens. So
No.
all right, so let's keep the soccer ball moving. That was cliche as can be. Let's keep.
It's okay, they're good. Cliches are cliche for a reason, because they get used.
So now you're in the first team. Are you back in the national team?
So I actually didn't even have an experience with the national team till I was really almost, was it even when I was in college? It was either right before I went to college or right when I was in college. So it was really late in my youth career.
Okay, so was that something that I assume there were other people around you, knowing your club, that were probably in the national team?
Yeah. So because of my age, that kind of set me then apart again. So the national team uses obviously your birth year. So a lot of my teammates were 95s and I was a 94. So when I went into camp, I didn't ever go into camp with any of them, which was kind of weird because some of them were in the national pool, just younger. So yeah, I think the youth national team kind of became a reality for me when I was later in my youth career, when I had started to slow down a little bit with my other sports and had decided that this is a sport that I wanted to pursue. So my experience with the U.S. youth teams was in the under 18 age group, which is obviously a developmental age group where you don't play any major tournaments. So that was interesting. But I went to probably 5 or 6 camps with the U.S., and then it was the transition to the U20 youth age group that I transitioned over to Canada. So I had started the U20 age group with the US. And then I got a call from the Canadian U20 coach and said, we want to have you in for a camp, but no strings attached. If you don't like it, you don't have to come play for us, which with FIFA you can do in the youth age groups. And actually you can do in the senior age groups till you get your first cap. So it was U20 World Cup was my first tournament with Canada.
Awesome. All right, so we're moving right along, I think. So you're going through your time. One thing I want to touch on there, you talked about kind of moving away from your other sports, right, that you were doing, basketball, track, what have you. At what age were you when you decided that you were going to focus on your soccer side?
So I played basketball and track all through high school. So it wasn't until college that I was one sport specific.
Okay. Awesome. All right, so let's go the recruiting process, since we've got some players on here that are
big topic.
Yes, and especially now with it being so crazy with COVID-19 and different dates and not being able to speak to people till they're a little bit older, which we all think is a great thing, but it's, for those people who got stuck in between it, it was a little bit hard. Yeah. What was your recruiting experience like from the college side? So,
like I said earlier, I had a really kind of late development. So it wasn't, I wasn't like I don't want to use this word, but for lack of a better word, like a standout until I went back to the national team that was younger than me, and that team was more nationally known. So when we won state cup, we went to regionals, and it was at that regional tournament when I was probably 15. That was the first time I had played in front of college coaches. So yeah, I think that was it that tournament? One of the tournaments when I was 15. That was a very long time ago. And obviously during that time, the coach couldn't directly contact me. So the coaches contacted my coach, who then said, this coach wants to talk to you. And then the process, I called them. So actually the first coach that I talked to was Tom Stone from Texas Tech. And we had a 2-hour conversation the first time I was ever on the phone with them. And I think probably for those of you that are listening that have gone through this recruiting process, you kind of figure out pretty quickly if you gel with that coach, if the conversation is easy or it's super awkward. And yeah, it was just a super easy conversation. So I decided I wanted to go visit Texas Tech. I was heavily recruited by probably 4 or 5 schools that I seriously considered. So that was Texas Tech, University of Florida, Cal Berkeley, University of Missouri, and University of Colorado. So
was Neil at Cal when you were there?
Yes.
All right, he might be on this call. So Neil, if so, we apologize. Please don't take that as salt in the wound.
Yes, I actually, I'm sure he will laugh about it now. And him and Tom Stone are great friends. So I actually never got to talk to Neil on the phone. Okay. I tried. So don't let it be known that I tried to talk to him. Right. So yeah, those are the schools that were interested and that I was equally interested in, and had set up very sporadic visits. So Texas Tech was the first school that I visited, and I'm sure the other schools that were interested were probably not happy that that was the first school I went to, because I got on campus and I tried to commit on campus, but my mom did not let me do that. So yeah, I just had an incredible experience on my visit. Again, another cliche, for those of you that have gone through the recruiting process and decided where you're going to go to school, you kind of just know that this is a place for me. And Texas Tech is in Lubbock, Texas, which is what would be considered a very small town to anyone from California. And yeah, it felt like home to me. So my recruiting process was fairly short because of I committed the summer between my sophomore and junior year of high school. Okay. And my recruiting process had only started like earlier that year. So I know a lot of people go through a much longer recruiting process, and it's not as simple for everyone. So I'm really glad that it was simple for me. But yeah, I'd be obviously interested to answer some more recruiting questions if you have them.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say one thing you touched on there is that you hit it off with Tom for 2 hours on your first phone call.
That's right? Not normal.
No, I know. Well, that's why I want to talk about it, because I think it sounds like, and I don't know you well, but it sounds like you, if you have a coach you're comfortable with, right, and that you have trust with, that's part of your process. It sounds like.
Oh, absolutely.
Can't imagine they've all been like that, and we'll get to that in a second. But was that important for you? Is that still important for you?
Yeah, I think again, it's probably something that a lot of younger people don't appreciate as much, which is fine, because I didn't at that time either. I just was so kind of blown away that it was so easy to talk to this college coach of this school that I really wanted to go to, and I was really excited. Didn't want to say the wrong thing. But if anyone on this call knows Tom Stone, he just talks. He's a talker. So that was more specific to him. He talks so much. And is a very good recruiter. So that's probably more personal to him. If you do not have 2-hour conversations on your recruiting calls, do not worry. It's totally fine. So yeah, I think the coach making it easy for you is important. That should be definitely a red flag if you have a difficult phone call with a school that says that they have interest in you. I would see that as a red flag.
Yeah. No, it's a good. I think that's you're committing 4+ years of your life potentially to something.
And what feels like a lot more than 4 years while you're there, and then when you leave, you're like, oh, that only felt like a year.
Yeah, exactly. And you wish you could have a little bit of it back.
I would go play 4 years again.
Yeah, exactly. You look young enough. You can get a different birth certificate. Neil, if you're listening, see what you can do with coming out of this. All right, so I want to. There's been some questions that have come in. I think one of these would be a good one. What's your favorite part about your college experience?
Oh, that's such a difficult question. I think I'm just such a relationship person. Like, the relationship that you build with your college teammates is incredibly special. We had some of the hardest workouts that I have done to this day in my career while I was in college. And there's really nothing like doing that with a group of people around you that have, the same goal. You all want to win. You want to win the national championship. You want to win conference championships. So we had some really, really difficult physical experiences together. And we also did a ton of team building from a mental, emotional perspective, which I really, really enjoyed as well. But I think that my favorite thing about college soccer, and I think college athletics, is just the small moments that you remember. When you're on the road, we used to do all the freshmen sang on the bus with headphones on, horrendous sounds. And that will always be one of my best memories. So, and then obviously we won the Big 12 my senior year, and that was obviously one of the best on the field memories, but that's not even the first thing that comes to my mind when I think about college soccer. So I think that's important, that it wasn't about the results for me, it was about the experience.
No, that's good. And probably you can't unhear some of the things you heard singing wise.
Oh, so. It's just like breaking your eardrums. And then you have that one random person that's really good.
Yeah. Anyways. Getting drowned out by everybody else.
Yeah.
All right. So now you're through Texas Tech. Obviously you had a good run. You had a good career. And I got to think, you're 94. So probably during the middle of this, the league starts, right? Or it's kind of in its infancy.
Yep. It was, I want to say 2 to 4 years, maybe 3. Yeah, 3 years old when I finished.
Yeah. So when you went to school, there wasn't a professional soccer league in the U.S. for you to aspire to, right? So now you come out, and here's the process, right? So what did that look like?
So for me, it looked a little bit different than what it would look like for a normal college athlete, because I had already made my first appearance for the Canadian senior team. Okay. So I had been on the senior national team for almost a whole year. I missed the 2015 World Cup by one roster spot. So that was difficult, but I had been with the team kind of that whole year. So the way that, this is confusing, so I'll try and make it as simple as possible. What happens in the NWSL currently is that US and Canadian players are called allocated players, which means that the federations actually pay the league to pay them. So the league doesn't actually pay these players, the federation does. So from that sense, the federation has a little bit of leeway and pull as to where their players play. So not something I totally agree with, but that's just the reality. And that was the reality when I was getting ready to get drafted. So my national team coach had called me and said, what's your dream team? What are your top 3 teams that you want to play? And I think at that point I had put Portland, Houston, and somewhere else. And you know how it works. There's always rumors, conversation. We're going to draft this person. We're going to take this person at this time. So I had heard some of those rumors. My college coach had heard some of those rumors. And by the end of it, I had a pretty good idea of where I was going to go, but there was no guarantees. I mean, obviously no one's going to say, we're taking you at this spot, be ready. That's not how a draft works. So I actually wasn't at the draft. I was in national team camp during the draft, which was also something that I won't forget, which was really cool. I got to watch it with some of my teammates. And I got drafted 8th overall to Houston. So that was kind of how that process worked. It's actually a really simple process for college players. You just put your name in, you enter online, and and you're there for the taking. So I like that they keep it pretty simple.
No, absolutely. All right, so I don't think we talked about this on here. I think it was beforehand when you and I were talking. You played 2 years in Houston and then into Jersey.
Sky Blue FC, yeah, for a season.
Okay. And for the sake of time, then from there, you ended up in Man City?
Yeah, so I actually left Sky Blue before the end of the season.
Okay.
And yeah, it was just like a week before the international transfer window closed that they had interest. So it all happened literally within like 5 days. And then 2 weeks later, I was in England. So that was a bit of a whirlwind. But yep, I've been there for 2 seasons. This is my second season. And we're right near the end of our season. We've played about 3/4. And hopefully we will be able to finish that last part of the season.
But you got a new contract.
I did. I just renewed my contract, or signed a contract extension for the next 2 years. So I will be wearing the Manchester City crest for another 2 seasons.
And wearing rain jackets.
Yeah, so. All the
time. Awesome. So what's been the biggest difference of playing in England?
You will not believe how many times I've gotten that question. So I'm quite a pro at answering it. The way that I talk about it is kind of just the difference between the NWSL and the WSL. So our league is called the WSL. And I think that the NWSL puts a big emphasis on the athleticism in the game, which by all means, it's a very athletic league. American players are naturally more athletic. So I think it varies team to team how much a coach puts attention to tactics and how to play the game and possession-based soccer. And then for some teams, if that's not their focus, it's more of a counterattack game. So I would say the NWSL is much more physically demanding, a lot more transition, which is what you see in the international game right now, and that's shifting. But the women's game for a long time, most goals do come in transition. They don't come in build-up. And it's kind of the opposite in England. Even the teams at the bottom of our league try and play out. They try and play possession-based soccer. And obviously at City, that's kind of just the way, the Pep way, if you will. So Nick Cushing, who was the coach when I first joined City, just an incredible soccer mind, one of the best that I've ever been around, just instilled this way in the team of playing. We play out, we play in very short spaces, we train in very small spaces. It's a lot of 1 and 2 touch, not a lot of dribbling. There's very few players on our team that will take more than 3 or 4 touches on the ball at any given time. So I've absolutely loved the style that we play. And I think that's probably the biggest difference between the leagues. Are there teams that play amazing possession football in the NWSL? Absolutely. I just think it's more widespread in England.
Yeah, that's great. What's your training schedule like? Because that was a question. You can give a quick version.
Yeah, so we have the just world-class facilities. We're incredibly lucky. So the typical day for me will be I have to be in at 8:30 in the morning to have breakfast with the team. So we eat as a team. And then we have analysis, which is our game review, game prep, training review. That usually lasts 15 to 30 minutes. And then we go straight to the gym and we do a lift. We lift every day. Every day that we're in. So we'll lift, and then directly from the gym, we go out on the pitch, and we'll train for about an hour and a half, come in, have lunch, and then either we have another meeting or we're done for the day. So I'm in from usually about 8:30 to 2 o'clock, and that's my day. We play on Sundays. We have Mondays and Thursdays off for the most part, unless the schedule changes. So, yeah.
Okay. So that's busy.
It is busy, but it's my job, and I'm lucky to call it my job, so I'm happy to give them all the time they need.
Absolutely. All right, so let's talk about Canada, because you defected from the U.S. to go play for the Canadians.
I'm just kidding. That's a joke.
I think it's awesome that you have these opportunities. And actually, we have one of our coaches on staff who played for Canada too, and knows a bunch of your coaches, so he takes great pride in that.
Yes.
So tell us about that, because obviously you've had some success and you've played at a pretty good level. I understand you've also played as a goalkeeper per one of the
Oh
questions.
my gosh.
So we got some people with some serious knowledge. So run us through that experience.
So it's 2020, as we all know. So I've been on the team for about 5 years, a little over 5 years. I made my first appearance actually on the campus of UCLA. That was my first cap. We played against Sweden in November of 2014. So I've made my first Canadian cap in California. That doesn't sound right. So yeah, been on the team since then. Like I said, I missed out on the 2015 World Cup by one roster spot, which was really difficult for me. But then the next year, I made the Olympic team that went to Rio. So I was a starter on the team in that tournament. Just will forever be one of my fondest memories, that Olympic Games. We won bronze. We beat Brazil in Brazil for the bronze medal, so that was pretty cool. And then, just played in the World Cup this past summer in France. Didn't do as well as we had hoped, but that's the way it goes. And then was planning on playing in Tokyo this summer, but that'll have to wait till next year. So it's been a whirlwind of a national team career. It's really crazy to think I've only been on the team for 5 years. It feels like much longer than that, but it's an incredible honor to be a national team player. And we have a really, really special team and a very good group of players and great group of people. So I'm really happy that I get to wear the Canadian badge.
It's awesome. So everything was, you said you guys struggled during the World Cup a little bit.
Yeah.
Anything special you want to share there?
It was a really strange tournament. So we did well in our group. We did really well. We came out second by one goal to the Netherlands in our third group game. So it came down to the third group game, and they beat us 2-1. So, and they obviously went to the World Cup final. So had we beat them, I always think, what could have been, which is a hard mindset to have. Try not to go there. But so we beat Cameroon in the first game. We beat New Zealand in the second game, and then obviously lost to the Netherlands. So we drew Sweden in the round of 16. And we played in, I don't even know how to say the name of the stadium, but we played in PSG Stadium right in the heart of Paris, which was unbelievable.
Intimidating stadium.
Yeah, in front of 47,000 people. And we lost the game 1-0. So they scored first, and we actually drew a penalty in the 75th minute. And I took the penalty, and it got saved. So, and we ended up losing the game. So that was still a really difficult moment for me, but just a moment that I am thankful now for, and I know that I will be thankful for later in my career, because I'm going to tell myself I'm never going to miss a penalty again. But yeah, so it was a difficult tournament, and we definitely were a good enough team to win the whole thing. So it's hard to swallow that pill, but that's why you play in those big tournaments.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you'll make your next one, and then you'll smile.
I take one after every training now, so kids, take your penalties.
As a goalkeeper, I say don't take your penalties, just miss them all. So we had a couple questions come in. Obviously, we presume that you haven't played just one position for your entire life. Has there been any moments where you've played places you didn't love, or?
Actually, currently, yes. It's funny you asked that. So I am naturally a forward. I've always been a forward in some respect. I've played in the midfield. The only position I haven't actually played in a game is center back. So I'd like to finish my career saying that I've never played center back. So for all you center backs out there, no offense, just not for me. But this season, I started the season as a starting forward for us. And in one of our Champions League games, our right fullback tore her ACL. So I have been filling that position for the season. So I've actually been a right back this year, which is never something that I would have ever thought that I would do. But I've actually enjoyed it so much. I think it's so beneficial to be pulled out of your comfort zone and see the game from a different part of the field. And it's made me a better forward, because I know what the fullbacks need from me, whether I'm a winger or a central forward. So that's been incredible. And yeah, I obviously had my very short stint at goalkeeper.
Tell that story.
Which is on YouTube if you want to watch it.
Perfect.
Google my name and goalkeeper, it should come up. We were at the Pan American Games in 2015, so this was after I missed out on the World Cup, and we took a younger team to this tournament. We were playing, I think it was Ecuador, and we were winning like 5-1 or something. And our goalkeeper comes out and totally takes his player outside of the box, gets a red card. We have used all our subs. And I had been joking with my goalkeeper coach the night before, like, look, hey, if anything happens, like, I'm your girl, I'll go in. And this was literally the next day. So I took the gloves. I think that everyone's favorite part of the video is that I had an absolute nightmare of a time getting the gloves and the jersey, because I had my jersey on and then I put someone else's jersey on and they were like, you can't wear that. So then I put a penny on and they were like, you can't wear that. And then I decided it'd be a good idea to change without taking the gloves off. Anyways, if you want to be slightly entertained, check it out. It's on YouTube. And then best part of it all, they had a free kick and they scored on me. So with about 5 minutes left in the game. So that was good.
The goals against average is like 2,000. Something.
Yeah, it's really bad. I don't think any goalkeeper coach would recruit me if they saw my stats.
Well, you know what? That'll teach you from joking around. So
yeah. Don't tell your coaches you'll go in.
That's beautiful.
The night before a game. It's bad luck.
That's hilarious. So I'm going to segue on, because I know you have a YouTube channel and a podcast.
I do, yes.
So tell us about that.
Yes, I launched my YouTube channel and my podcast this past year. My YouTube channel is called Being Beckie, and I have a few vlogs on there, so check them out. Subscribe. I haven't done a video in a long time because of all this craziness, but announcement, I was going to announce this tomorrow, but all you guys get a sneak peek. I'm going to launch a new series called #Teammates, where I'm going to jump on podcasts with current and former teammates and chat about what's going on and memories and all that good stuff. So that'll be on my YouTube channel and my podcast. And my podcast is called Brewing with Beckie. So I'm a big coffee fan. Drink coffee all day if I could, but then I would never sleep. So I've had a few podcasts, some with my Manchester City teammates, one with my former coach, who's now a coach in the MLS. So it's on Spotify. I'm working on getting it on Apple Podcasts, but you can find me on Spotify, and most of my podcasts are on my YouTube channel.
From Bernardo Silva, just watched the video. It is true. 5 million views of a 5-minute video watching Janine struggle to put on gloves and a jersey.
Thanks for watching it. Whoever posted that video is like famous now.
Oh yeah, they probably
5 million views. Wow.
That's awesome. All right, we'll make sure that when we post this, we'll post this onto our YouTube and we'll share it with you so you can
awesome.
Post it if you want.
Yeah, check out my channel.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I like to think it's pretty cool, but you be the judge of that.
Well, so one of the questions, and maybe you have more time during the quarantine, so I'm gonna read through some of these questions because we have about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
What have you been doing during the quarantine to stay ready and fit?
So yeah, that's a big question. I think I have been given programs from both my teams. So I have a national team program and a club program. And we get on weekly calls with our performance teams to chat about how things are going, how they can better assist us. So that's been incredible. But also what I've really appreciated about my teams is they've said, have some fun, try something new, mix up your workouts a little bit because they can get obviously super repetitive. So I was actually just telling these guys, I bought a treadmill, so made a big investment in my fitness. That's been fun because it's been snowing here. So I try and run outside when I can, but it has to be on the treadmill when it's snowy. I do a lot of body weight circuits. I have quite a big variation of dumbbells, so I try and do as much as I can with that. But I have started to do dance cardio, which, is something I never thought I would get into, but I'm really enjoying in this quarantine. So I've been doing a lot of working out, trying to give myself some downtime, which is difficult for me. Been watching some Tiger King, if anyone's seen that. It's actually ridiculous.
Joe Exotic.
I've been cooking a lot. I love to cook. It becomes an issue when I cook too much and then I have to eat it all. Just trying to stay busy. I would love to say that I've been reading, but that would be a lie. So I'm not going to lie to you guys. Someone asked me before what my favorite book is. Yeah, and I don't even know if I can answer that because I just am such a bad reader.
You got to go Audible. Audible.
I know.
It's the best. It's a world changer.
Yep. So that's pretty much what I've been doing. Not anything super exciting. I've been on a lot of Zoom calls, so that's been great. Trying to keep up with teammates. It's important.
No, that's good. Yeah, I bet that connection piece. I'm sure you guys are all chomping at the bit to get back to life. And
yep. I never thought that I would miss training so much, but I do.
Yeah, I can only imagine. All right, I'm going to go jump to a couple other questions. How do you deal with, because you're talking about playing in front of big crowds, obviously none of our kids are playing in front of 47,000 people at the Parc des Princes, I think it is.
There you go. That's the one.
It is intimidating, and it's straight up, and it's a fun place to watch a game. I don't know. I'm sure it'd be great to play. How do you deal with those distractions?
It's definitely an experience thing. I think I was really lucky because my first experience playing in front of massive crowds was at the Olympics in Brazil, where there's some of the craziest soccer fans you'll ever come across. So,
director of coaching, by the way. So,
yeah, it's crazy. I think we played randomly 4 of our games in the same stadium at the Olympics, which is not normal. It's just how our schedule played out, and there was 40,000+ at each of our games. I think the most we got was 60.
Wow.
So we actually we've trained before inside a closed stadium with crowd noise on the speakers. And it's very frustrating to train like that because it's false noise. But you have to practice nonverbal communication, which is difficult to do on a soccer pitch. But also you just kind of had to deal with it. And to be honest, at the World Cup, I didn't really notice it. You kind of just get used to it after a while. It depends on the stadium too, because in Paris, the fans are actually really far away from you. So there's quite a bit of space in between the pitch. But I mean, any soccer player will know when you're in the zone, you're in the zone. And it's just like being on your hometown pitch with your team when you're out there playing. So, it hasn't been a huge thing for me. I think I love it. I think the pressure makes me play better. I like, when a lot of people are watching, that's just how I've always been, which I think is a really good thing. So yeah, that was a long answer.
That's a good answer. Sorry, as I cough. I'm supposed to do this, I think. I'm in my own room. So
either way,
it's all good. So one of our staff actually asked this question. What's your next goal? What's next? Have you set your sights on what's next? Obviously, getting a new contract is awesome, but
well, my next biggest thing was to win the gold at Tokyo, but that's gonna have to be put on hold. So, I mean, from a club perspective, we have 2 trophies on the line in the rest of the season. So we're still in the FA Cup, and we are in first in the league right now. So to win the league title and to win the FA Cup, definitely. And then I think personally, like I've had a strong season in a position that I haven't played. So to finish the season strong and, I'm not a stats person, but it helps with, things for me. So yeah, just to end the season, having had a good season and continuing the season that I've had and to be confident, I think has been the biggest thing for me this season. So short term, winning those 2 trophies, long term, gold next summer.
Turning that bronze into gold. Love that.
Yep.
Zach, I don't know if you heard it, but she beat Brazil to get the bronze medal, just so we're clear, in Brazil.
Actually, by the way, I watched that game. And I remember watching you playing too, so that hurts me.
Anytime I can take
that was like the one game I actually didn't play that much in, but it was, my gosh, one of the best games ever to watch from the sideline.
Yeah, and you guys got lucky anyway, so.
Hey, the good news? I can mute him. He's gone. All right, so as we're wrapping up our time here, is there any kind of final thoughts that you want to leave with our players or anything, any advice?
Yeah, I actually was having this conversation with my former college coach yesterday. We were on the phone just kind of chatting about everything that's going on in youth soccer and all that stuff, just having a bit of a catch up. And I was talking about being on this call, and I just would like to go back to kind of being on the second team and say that when you see someone like me who's been successful in my professional career, have made my way to the national team, have, achieved the goals that I wanted to when I was younger, I've not always been that player. I wasn't that player when I was younger. I'm still not the best. I was good, and I was good enough to keep going, but there were so many times where that wasn't there for me, and those times didn't derail me from what I wanted. But I think to understand that to get to this level, you don't always have to have it all together. You don't always have to be the best player on your team. You don't always have to win all the championships. I've won very few championships in my career, and that's something that I want more of, but haven't had growing up. So yeah, it doesn't always have to be you that does it all. You don't have to be the star on your team all the time. You don't have to put the team on your back. Just go out every day and train really hard, work really, really hard. If anything, I always wanted to be the hardest working, fittest player on my team. And that's a big part of my game still. So I think so many young people put so much pressure on themselves to be the best when they're younger. And it's a myth that you have to be that way. And you can make your way to the top of women's or men's soccer, being who you are right now and just trying to get better.
Big time. That is the best way to end that I could have ever asked for. I might have to clip that. And put it up. Hey, listen, you have been a treat. We really appreciate your time. You probably have a whole bunch more followers now and a bunch more fans.
Woo!
Yeah, exactly. So a big San Juan thank you to Janine. We appreciate you so much. Best of luck the rest of the season. And for everybody else, we're going to jump over to the other call with Adam John next, starting in 2 minutes. So
well, thanks so much for having me. This was so much fun, and I hope that everyone enjoyed it. And hopefully we'll see some of you out at some game sometime. So if you make your way over to England, come say hi.
All right. Thanks, Janine.
Thanks, guys. Take
Thanks,
care.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye.